I'm originally from the Bay Islands of Honduras, and my community and people were never written out of history or textbooks. We were simply never included. Instead, we preserved our history through oral traditions, like listening to my mother during Sunday dinner talk about a history of resistance in the islands through English-speaking schools when she grew up, or sitting on porches with my grandfather and listening to his stories about why he chose to become a boat builder, like his father and his father's father before him, and how through these skills and tradition, he upheld our history and passed them down. What I came to learn and find out is that across the islands, families were using storytelling as a tool. During dinner time, on porches, in their living room, sharing our history to ensure that every generation that came after them knew and understood who we are and where we came from. You see, story time for us isn't just about stories. Like many marginalized communities across the world, stories are used as a tool for preservation, for activism, for impact, and most importantly, for survival. And through my film, Inheritance, we were able to capture that history through the voices of the people of the Bay Islands. I hope that you enjoy. Thank you. This is me. I'm at my grandparents' house with my mom and my aunts a few days after I was born. We're from the Bay Islands of Honduras, located off the country's northeast coast. My parents, they grew up across the street from each other. Eventually fell in love, got married, and had me and my sister. They would later divorce. My mom moved to the US, that brought us to live with her. She sent me and my sister back home every other year to spend time with our family.
That's Zanolee Janet Grant right there. She's going snorkeling again.
My grandparents owned a beach. We'd fish, run around, and sometimes even help my grandfather work on his boats. He was interviewed in 1979 by a travel writer for the Washington Post at his home in Lacey Point. He talked about how he still built boats the traditional way, with wood and not with fiberglass. He learned the trade from his father, who learned from his father. They were considered masters of their craft. By 2007, my grandparents lost their property. When we couldn't visit the family beach anymore, I began to wonder how my family came to own so much land and how they lost it all in the span of one generation.
That so happened long time ago. Now you used to always come and see me, you know.
I know.
You were the other one.
This one?
Oh, yeah.
Her hair different, no.
They always used to come.
Through visits like these, I learned that so many others were experiencing the same thing my family had, but no one had clear answers as to why or how. I decided to go back home to try to find those answers.
And Article 28 says that el Estado de Honduras, por intermedio de las sedes, pueden declarar la expropiación. Excuse me, sir, don't touch me. Don't touch me, sir. Hey, hello. Stop.
At this rate, our voice is going to be completely taken away.
They won't not only be pushed aside as they're being today, even having the land, they will be ran over, literally ran over.
They stand to lose part of their history, their inheritance, their culture.
We belong to Honduras. We realize we belong to Honduras, but our culture is 100% different, and they haven't impacted us enough for us to want to change the way that we live today.
You excited?
Can't you see? Our people descend from the British colony when after emancipation we had, a lot of black English-speaking people came to the Bay Islands. And then, uniquely, some of their masters also moved over with them. One of the reasons most of our people don't consider themselves part of Honduras is because of, one is we are separated by a large space of water. We've been isolated with our language, our customs. We really did not felt identified with the Honduran mainland during all that period of time because of the will of the government want to do or not do things here on the island. Yeah, see the church? That's the Church of God. Okay, yeah.
So, Mr. T, what we got this evening?
And the menu this evening is fried pork, fried chicken, foot and mondongo soup.
Okay.
Banana or breadfruit.
Wow.
Options.
Okay. Let me have a little piece of chicken and the breadfruit, excuse me.
All right.
Breadfruit.
Chicken and breadfruit.
Chicken and breadfruit, that would be my part. All right, the smallest one you got. Don't want no pile right here now. All right, I'll be okay in the back.
Sambo.
Honduras and the Bay Islands was never a easy thing at any point. Bay Islanders really didn't do much contacting and stuff to or with mainland Honduras. The fact that they were self-sustaining and they were able to do so much by themselves without needing the intervention of any government, it was a big thing for them. I'll grab that after, okay? Any day, Madre. Back again, what's up? All right, you want to let me speak? Guess it. Let me go drop this off, come back. Get some water here. What this looks like. Yep, that's ready. They silently planned, and executed, and we, as islanders, I think we missed the whole thing. I think our aim really wasn't focusing on surviving on that level, but the fact of what the government did and how they did it, to me, it was very, very subtle, and we didn't see it coming. And the damages it's causing today, it's almost irreversible, I would say.
The government came in and not only were interested in conquering this parcel of land to become part of Honduras, but they were after eliminating us as a people by getting rid of our history, getting rid of anything that could trace us back to show us who we really are and where we came from.
My family was brought here during the time of slavery and everything else, so far as the third generation, I would say. We practically grew up here in this area of the island from the time that my parents, could recall their history here on the island. We lived here in this section, in this area.
Most of our family's history and records are recorded within the Methodist books. Those documents that accredited each landowner that were given by the Crown had a whole amount of information about the person, where they live, what even as far as who their joining neighbors were and what families they were, and even some history on your mother and father, where they came from.
A title document, because we still have a copy of that, the land was given to my ancestors, them. So it was entitled to them. So as a copy of those titles, we still have a part of that. And so this land or that land has been kept in the family from the time it been given down from the British.
One of the important things that happened during that time when it came to turning us over by the British government to the Honduran government was they signed a treaty. And in that treaty, the Honduran government supposed to have respect our land ownership and our practice of religion and our manner of life. But slowly the Honduran government began to imply laws and come up with ideas that kind of allow them to get a foothold on changing our documents and having access to them. The Honduran government came up with a new law that they were going to do a census throughout the territory and have everyone bring in their document. They say, entre comillas, to update them and whatnot. So during that census, they made us sail through the whole island, and they give a certain date that everyone should bring in their document and claim their land that they say they had. But that information was limited.
Their sentiment was to reject Honduran policy. Never did they realize, in my opinion, that that reaction, even though justified, I would agree 100% with it, but probably they did not see what it would implicate in the future regarding legalizing their land.
So a lot of islanders during that time lost their rights.
I had uncles that did a lot of farming. They farmed for all of their lives. They passed that down to their children. Their children began to farm. Standard fruit was all the boom back in the day. So a lot of my family, they just lived off of that.
Agriculture, that was the base of the economy. And banana and coconut used to be shipped to New Orleans. My great-grandfather, on my father's side, the Johnson, they used to have plantation of sugarcane, banana, and these areas right here were full of a lot of coconut trees. My grandfather told me that they used to pick up, 3, 4, 5,000 coconuts per week, and they would prepare them to ship out by the weekend.
We all understood that the land was important to us just for farming. We didn't understand anything other than that. And I think that that manner of life was good in its place, but for what we have today, we needed knowledge. And that is something that manner of life didn't afford.
The government back in the 1960s, 1970s used to send out misiones castellanizadoras. This means specific teams with the mission to go and teach Spanish in terms of eliminating the local language and impose the Spanish language within the Bay Islands and the Mosquito Coast up in Gracias a Dios. So the way they overturned the system and took control of it to embrace and forcibly set in the Spanish wasn't by mistake. That was a plan and intention. So that's where the policy came out that you could not speak English in school. You could not direct yourself to your teacher in English. If you didn't understand, that was your problem. Now,
when I was small, I think I was in first grade, second grade. I was going to a Church of God school, English school, American school, and they closed us down because we're teaching English.
When I was in public school here on the island, they literally told us it was wrong to speak English. And we actually had to pay a fine for every English word we spoke in the classroom. They said it was a government school, a Spanish school, and therefore English was not allowed. And when you come from a home where you speak English as your mother tongue, it is so difficult for you to go into another environment only 5 hours a day and totally forget where you come from. And that was our reality when I was in school from 1st to 6th. We had to pay either 5 or 10 centavos for every English word we said in the classroom.
You know, I remember one of my friends, he always said to me, he said, I won't think that the teacher think I'm dumb, and I'm dumb. He said, I don't understand what you're saying. speaking Spanish. He said, I don't understand it. And then they want to chastise me. And a lot of people ran away from school early because they'll get schooled when they're there. And not that the kid was not bright. He just didn't understand. You know, you're speaking to someone, you don't understand it, so why are you there? And then they could beat you for it or chastise you.
My paternal grandfather graduated high school in Honduras. None of my other grandparents did. My mother's father made it to 7th grade. Neither of my grandmothers made it past 6th.
Okay. My name is Carmen McLaughlin.
Mildred Connor. I live in Coxon Hole, Lisa Point.
Jamie Elizabeth Collins.
Where you from?
Right here, where are
you from?
Right here, Coxon Hole. I live in Touch Point.
Holding on to the land, especially for my mother, was very significant because they was brought up. You know, the land was inherited and purchased, but when you purchase from an islander, it was like you purchase, I'm selling you this parcel or this area, but you don't sell it.
Crawfish Rock is a community in Rotan that is located in one of the most rural areas of the island. It's a community where they pride themselves on tradition and self-determination. They're currently fighting a private development project. The land, they claim, was stolen from them. The women leading the fight have been threatened, beaten, and are under constant surveillance.
You can talk about your community, how it's impacted, and the fact that this was imposed by the previous President Joe, as he's called, J-O-H, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was extradited to the United States for drug trafficking, for corruption. Even though it was repealed, how it's being enforced right now in your community and the particular effects on your community.
Nosotros los nativos vamos a levantar. I can't talk in no Spanish, but I could speak in what I know. This is my community. That's it. And we not gonna let nobody come here and take it over no foreigners. No, they're gonna leave. Aquí the fight starting here. If it's gonna start here, it start here. Crawfish Rock not giving in. We're not making nobody that come from all things that come over here and do what they want. We say no to say it, if we mean no to say it. No te say it.
In days back, there used to be no land selling. The land used to be there, and if I need it, I could have it. And we live as one in the community. And now we have a problem with the farming because now we don't have much land that we could go say, well, I need to farm here, I need to farm there. Nobody know who to trust. I go lend you my land and you farm after a certain year after you won't take it from me. And so that been a little hindrance here because now you have to know you real, you have to be real close to me to be able to offer you that willingly like as before.
That's where our people were kind of left out. The system was set up in a way, in fact, the system was designed that way, to where we would not understand, didn't know what was going on, and by that, we lost a lot.
Why are you guys so persistent?
For them owning the land, farming the land, trying to preserve the land and their inheritance and history and their birthright and labor, they labor hard on the land and for the land, and for the government to just come in and take that away from you, promise to pay you, and then end up not following through. Back then, the islanders thought that your word means something.
If we continue this way, we're not even going to count anymore. Right now, they're calling us to a meeting, they're inviting us to an expo, they're saying to come and be a part. And they're saying that because we still have a piece of land. But when we don't have that land anymore, we don't have anything, absolutely anything. And it's going to be really bad. It's bad now, but it's going to be worse if we continue down this path.
When I tried to locate my grandparents' land titles through the government registry, they weren't found. We tried going to the local municipality to find answers, but they weren't in any of the systems there either. Their life's work, the boats, beach, properties, businesses, not a trace of anything. It's like they weren't real people. They were never here.
Yeah, Zanolee, that was a fantastic film. And one of the most interesting things that I learned when I watched it was literally just the struggle of the people of the Bay Islands. And by a show of hands, how many of us knew about this community of people before watching this film? Exactly, right? But I'd like to ask also, how many of us know what it feels like to have something taken away from us that is rightfully ours? Show of hands. Right. So that is impact, right? And one of the most important things that we learned through this film as people is that it doesn't matter necessarily who you are, but there are things that happen in life that we can all relate to, which is so important. And so I want to ask you, what did you hope to accomplish with this film?
So for me, the initial thought behind the film was just adding to this tradition of storytelling for my people. My parents had done it, my grandparents, and generations back, and I thought that I was just contributing to tradition. But when I started this journey, it dated back roughly probably about 12 years ago. And digging into research year after year, it culminated into a research paper. And it didn't have the impact that I wanted because it didn't reach as many people as I initially wanted it to reach. And I had always been interested in filmmaking and photography, and that was also part of my initial research when I got into storytelling in the Bay Islands.
Yeah.
So the film itself, the initial intent was to capture this, rich and diverse history that had never been told, but to really take it back to the islands, to our people, and to share it with everyone in our community so that we had a reference, because we don't have a reference in textbooks and history, anywhere in Honduran history, we just do not exist.
Right.
So my initial thought was to create something that could cast a wider net and to become a visual storyteller. And we were able to do that by taking it back to the island and screening it with communities there.
That's fantastic. And, in just the way that you shot this film, and the way that you tell the story, it's very clear how passionate you are as a documentary filmmaker. And I want to know, how does filmmaking serve you in this? And where's your passion for it derived from?
So I'm a late bloomer to the medium. I started out first just as a electoral field worker collecting stories, and then a researcher specifically about oral traditions in the Bay Islands. But through that process, through collecting stories and then going back to the Bay Islands, both of my grandparents were storytellers, my grandmothers. And one of them collected lots of photographs. So I was introduced to this medium of visual storytelling through my grandmother who shared stories through her photographs.
Wow.
And from there, it just kind of evolved into filmmaking for me because I was very interested in visual storytelling through my research.
Yeah.
And it started as something that I would do just on the side while I was working. I would just pick up a camera, and it was a passion project. But I realized that my passion and my purpose aligned through storytelling, and the way in which I wanted to communicate it was visually. And that's where filmmaking was introduced to me.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so your work sits at this very interesting intersection of activism and storytelling. And through the work that you've done and also the films that you've created, this is very clear. It's a very clear through line for you. And I want to know, how does film create the pathway to better serve your community, social justice, and support your activism work?
Oh man, okay. Having done, I think, electoral fieldwork for roughly maybe 12 to 13 years and knocking on doors and speaking to folks directly, one of the things that I was able to do is meet people where they are. But I got to a point in that work, I think, where I wanted to cast a wider net and be able to connect with more people.
Yeah.
So that took me back to, my work has always been rooted in activism, and it took me back to thinking about how I could connect with more people and going through the history of, other documentary filmmakers and making impact work specifically. This led me on this journey of taking that 12 years of experience of, researching and door-to-door work and speaking to folks about issues that matter to them, and translating that into visual storytelling that not only was telling a story, but that people could relate to and feel motivated to go out and do something about what they saw.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so film is a very incredible medium to support activism work. And if there's anybody here that's interested in using film as that medium to help tell those stories within their communities, what are some of the things that you would tell them?
I would first say to be intentional about what you're doing. When I started, like I said, it was 12 years of research and learning. I'm from this community, but meeting people where they are and listening to their stories and realizing the vulnerability that, comes with people sharing their actual stories and the power that we have when we hold a camera in front of them.
Right.
So I would tell any storyteller and anybody that's out there looking to begin this journey is that there's a lot of power behind that camera, and to be very intentional with the stories that you're choosing to tell, and to make sure that we are respecting those communities while we're lifting them up.
Yeah. Well, we are very grateful